And I remember thinking to myself, okay, well, I'm obviously not the first. I mean, I'm the first with bloggers, but not with celebrities. I'm not the best. I don't have that many years behind me in this sector. So I decided to be the fastest.
Hi, and welcome to Handbag Designer 101, the podcast with your host, Emily Blumenthal, handbag industry expert and the handbag fairy godmother. Each week, we uncover the stories behind the handbags we love, from the iconic brands and top designers to the creativity, craftsmanship, and culture that define the handbag world. Whether you're a designer, collector, or simply passionate about handbags, this is your front row seat to it all. Welcome, Idalia Salsamendi, to Handbag Designer 101, the podcast. Idalia, welcome. I'm so excited to have you. This is so exciting.
Thanks for having me, Emily Blumenthal. I love how you say my entire name. You're probably one of the few people that when you ask me, did I pronounce this correctly? I'm like, yes, you got my first name correct, Idalia. Normally, it's like I have to give like a story and like Italy, Italia, but with a D, Idalia, you got it right. So
Idalia, you have morphed into an influencer and someone who has just so much impact on so many people. How did all this get started? Like, what did you do with your background to get to this point? Because, you know, on our podcast, we talk a lot about small business and growth and entrepreneurship and really finding your voice. And obviously, it doesn't necessarily need to be within handbags, but it's more about business and, you know, taking something from nothing and turning it into something.
Sure. So great first question. I actually grew up in the industry. So my mom did public relations for Univision, like the TV network.
Wow.
So yeah, I would go to upfronts with her when I was a little kid. I used to go to like all her events. So I knew at a very early age what public relation was. And I really understood at an early age what talent management took. I thought it was just a really interesting avenue. So at 19 years old, I'm 41 now. So for 21 years, 19 was my first job at a PR agency here in Miami. And that segued over to me working at two of the top modeling agencies in the States, which was Ford and then at Next. So by the time I came to Next, we were just beginning to sign what we call bloggers. Right? So Chiara Ferragni, Julie Sarigliana, Sincerely Jules, Danielle Bernstein. So we were really at the forefront of this blogger movement. I was transferred over to their New York office because this was in LA, and I became the director of talent. So that's where I really got to work with top stars like Pamela Anderson and Dua Lipa. So I really, from a very early age, I understood the public relations side of the business because I worked PR. I grew up in PR.
Did you go to college?
Yeah, I went to FIU, Florida International University. I studied journalism and mass communication with a minor in business administration.
So were you working while you were going to school?
Oh, yes, ma'am. I'm I'm a first generation American. My parents are like, study and work. Yeah. So it was during college that I was getting my bachelor's in journalism and working at a PR agency and vice president of my sorority and vice president of like the number one non-for-profit that they have, which is Dance Marathon. So yeah, I was a very busy student. That really shaped who I was for various reasons. Like the PR agency that I worked for were all women and it was women run, which, you know, 20 years ago, that wasn't anything that you would say out loud, not for any particular reason. It just was a point of conversation. But I knew there was something special there because I was surrounded by very strong, beautiful women. Mm-hmm. And, you know, to this day, they're very close friends of mine. And then I was in a sorority, and that also was very strong women. You know, how you had to keep a certain GPA, you had to do X amount of community service hours. They held you to a standard as a civilian that, you know, I thought that was a really good fit for me. You know, so my university life, that really shaped me into, oh, this is what a business would look like. Oh, this is what giving back looks like. Oh, this is what being part of a community looks like. So by the time I hit Next Models and Next Management in New York and I was dealing with the celebrities, that's where I realized I think there's a white space in this creator economy where consulting and strategy really need to take the forefront. Because yes, you can go into an agency and they say, yeah, we're going to strategize. Yes, we're going to do this. But you may talk to your agent in that capacity maybe once, twice, 3 times a year. Uh-huh. And what I realized is a lot of these young entrepreneurs, I mean, literally these bloggers were 19, 20 years old, making 7 figures.
Yeah.
They really didn't understand how the business worked. And why should they? Like, no one ever taught them.
Right.
So Idalia Inc. really stemmed from educating content creators and saying, okay, well, if you do want to make this a business, how can you protect yourself intellectually, financially, legally? And that was like the start of what my company, that was like literally the birth of Idalia Inc.
What was the incentive for you to say, okay, I'm going off on my own? What brought you to that point?
It's interesting. I was working with a coworker of mine, Jane Lim, who's Chriselle Lim's little sister. And she turns to me one day and she says, you're not happy. And I'm like, Jane, of course I'm happy. I'm like, I get into the best restaurants. I go to the best parties. I go to Fashion Week. She's like, yeah, that's not filling your cup.
Right.
And it was the first time someone really looked at me and said, that's not what life is about.
Mm.
And I was in my early 30s. And I'm like, isn't that like, it reminded me of the scene in The Devil Wears Prada where Meryl Streep turns to Anne Hathaway. She goes,
everyone wants to be us.
Everybody wants to be us.
Yep.
And Anne Hathaway really had to take that in, absorb it, digest it, and say, is this true? And for me, it wasn't true. Sure, everybody wants to be us, but once you see the amount of work that goes into the background, once you see the sacrifices you need to make, does everybody want to do that? Obviously not, because if not, everybody would be doing what we're doing. Mm-hmm. So I had to figure out what made sense for me. And for me, it was really, really communicating with young entrepreneurs, mostly women, right? Because bloggers back then, I mean, maybe you had one or two guys, but it was mostly women. I go, wow, this is an industry where women make more than men. This is amazing.
Right.
Like so cool. What if I could teach them to be CEOs? What would that look like?
That's so fascinating. But while you were still day jobbing, had you templatized how you work with clients? Like, what was the first thing you would look for? Like, you took on someone because dealing with brands and designers,
yes,
especially teaching students who are aspiring designers, so much of that is never ever taught. What are the keystones that you would say, okay, what are the things that you have or need to get locked down before we even move forward?
As a content creator?
Yeah.
I think number one, and I apologize for the vague answer, but it's just knowing the business. That's just it. Mm-hmm. There's so many people that don't realize that you need to pitch, that you need to have a media kit, that you have, personal branding. You know this, you're a professor. Right. So it's the 101 of, yes, we can go into like how to sell your IP. Yes, we can go into capsule collections, but that's like fourth year. Mm-hmm. Right. The majority of content creators right now don't even know, and they don't have access to like that quote unquote first year knowledge. So it is just looking at the business and saying, OK, well, what do you need to do? And the same way, like we can apply it to like, OK, let's say you want to get a job. Right. You want to get a job in finance. You probably may want to go to university and study finance. You may want to be good at numbers. You may want to like know how to work this application, whether it's Excel or, whatever accountants do now. But imagine a world where content creators don't even know that they need to be educated. They don't even know they need to be good at numbers. They just, throwing caution to the wind, crossing their fingers and, praying something sticks.
Right.
And very, very, very few people are able to create a sustainable business that way. Those are the exceptions, not the rule. So I'm out to teach the rules.
What would you say that those rules are going in? Like, okay, because if we're to look at this as like hypothetically a designer or a brand owner and saying, okay, you need to know the business. Typically, at least with my students and the designers with whom I've worked, before we even do a damn thing, I ask them like, what's your brand DNA? Who's your competition?
Yeah, that's right.
If you're doing your 4 Ps, give it to me in the shortest breakdown. Like, who's the customer in the middle? What does she eat for breakfast? What car does she drive? Like, what would she carry in her bag? Like all these, and do a quick competitive analysis and all of these things. And, I had designers saying, oh, I almost got into Saks. And I said, I almost got into Saks too, but then I went to have sushi. Like, it's not about almost getting in. You either are or you're not.
Or you're not.
And if you're not, it's for good reason. And you have to figure out what's the why of that.
I love that. Yeah. It was interesting because 2 summers ago, I taught a semester at the Jimmy Choo Academy, and it was all these designers. And everything that you said, like I 100% echoed that you have to understand that. And, going back to your original question, when I work with designers, when I work with brands, it's number one, what's your why? So that's goes, and even I do that with content creators, personal branding. And something as simple as what's your font? What's your logo? What are your color schemes? Do you want that to be seasonal or do you want that to be forever? Right? Because look at YSL, Yves Saint Laurent. We went from Yves Saint Laurent to YSL to Saint Laurent to like right now, So it's not saying that once you decide on something, you need to like follow it to, the day's end, but what is that ethos of the brand? And then understanding, like, if you are going to pitch yourself out to celebrities, if you are going to pitch yourself out to influencers or KOLs, do you have a press kit?
And what would a press kit consist of based on your experience?
Yeah.
Because so many people think it's a million different things.
So I do want to preface this by saying that a press kit and a media kit vary differently. So I would say that if you are a designer listening to this, I'll give you the answer. If you are an influencer or content creator, I do think it varies. But as far as a press kit, when I work with brands, is definitely understanding who's the owner, what's the vision. You just finish saying, give me your 4 Ps. Right. What's your why? Right. So immediately start off with, who are you? Give me a true why. Like, I don't want to, like, at this point, how inundated this industry is, like, you are not going to catch someone's attention. Oh, I grew up loving handbags and I don't, right? No, give me the Jane Birkin story. Give me that you were sitting down next to, somebody in a flight. You realized that she couldn't carry everything and she wanted a chic bag. You came back to the studio and you created the Birkin bag, right? Like, that's the story that I want to hear. That's the story that's like, yes, that's going to sell me on the bag. So your why and your story has to be catching, like, make me remember that story.
To that point, 2 things. To that point, one of the things that I've dealt with a lot, specifically within what's the why, is number 1, trying to teach that your why can't be coming from something negative because nobody wants to hear anything negative. So it needs to be flipped. When I started out 100 million years ago, advertising was the hot, cool thing. The one thing they always said is don't go into a meeting or an interview saying, I love commercials. It's like, no, what do you like? What do you think about the messaging that it's emoting to you? What stands out? Why are you feeling this? And also in terms of trying to think like, okay, something was missing on the market. You have your Jane Birkin story, but like, okay, where your product will potentially sell, do you shop there? The answer 9 times out of 10 is no, because no new designer will ever be carried in the Saks. Maybe they shouldn't right now, but in a major retailer, because they won't touch you with a 10-foot pole until you have traction and followers and brands with fans. And you can say that, when you start carrying my product, I can guarantee people will come and buy it.
Yeah.
So there's got to be more than just the Birkin story. It's like, and I've researched it and realized that.
Yes. And that's where the rest of the press kit goes. Like, like, are you showing samples or are you showing your products? Are you showing like a press part of your, your press kit where you see where celebrities or, maybe whatever that is. So to your point, yes, like that's part 1. And then part 2, it's like, why should that other person carry your brand? And just so that, also it ties in beautifully with content creators because, they say, oh, well, I want to work with Dior. Okay, well, there's brand alignment. Who at this point, who doesn't want to work with Dior, right? Like at this point, who doesn't want to be carried, at Bergdorf Goodman, who like really? So, who doesn't want to be in Harrods in London, right? Everybody. That's the epiphany. That's like the the promised land. But what are you doing before then? So when you ask me like, okay, like what is it? It's like, it's the business. You need to understand that to get to Dior, there's like 20 other steps that you need to climb. But if no one tells you that, how are you going to know that? Yep. If you want to get to Saks or let's say Harrods for sake of conversation, you need to know that Harrods is not your first phone call. It's not your first pitch.
God forbid it should be.
If you ever wanted to start a handbag line and didn't know where to start, this is for you.
Living proof that independent designers can make it big.
Emily Blumenthal is one prime example.
If you had dreams of becoming a handbag designer and didn't know where to start, this is for you. If you have a handbag brand and are in need of strategy and direction, this is for you. I'm Emily Blumenthal, handbag fairy godmother and handbag designer expert, and this is Handbag Designer 101, the masterclass. Over the next 10 classes, I will break down everything you need to know how to make, market, and manufacture a handbag. Broken down for you that you'll not only skip steps in that handbag building process, but also save money in that learning curve. For the past 20 years, I've been teaching at the top fashion universities in New York City, created the Handbag Awards, and also the Handbag Designer 101 podcast. I'm going to show you, like I have countless brands, from sketch to sample to shelf. Whether you're just starting out and don't know where to begin, or even if you have a handbag line and just need some strategic direction, the Handbag Designer 101 Masterclass is just for you. So let's get started, and you will be the creator of the next It Bag. Join me, Emily Blumenthal, with the Handbag Designer 101 Masterclass.
Honestly, my first pitch as a handbag designer was to Barney's, which is even funnier. Yeah, because I was working in media and had a lot of connections, and I was connected to the buyer of handbags and went in and had a meeting, and they walked in, they looked at it, and they walked right out. And I was standing there with my product on the table, like, and it's cute, and that butt nearly killed me. I walked out like
Deflated.
Oh, deflated is an understatement, thinking like, but this was my moment. I was going to arrive. I was going to be one of those success stories. Like, I happened to stop by Barney's and I happened to show my product and they happened to want it. Oh, look at me. The funny thing is that sometimes naivete is a blessing, because I did not even think they wouldn't want it.
I was listening to a podcast and it was Alex Hormozi, and he was saying, in business, you have uninformed optimism. Because you're uninformed, you're like, yes, I'm going to go into Barney's, everything that you said. You're like, and it's that naivete. And then that quickly transitions to informed negativity or an informed pessimism. So you have uninformed optimism, informed pessimism.
Mm-hmm.
So the big thing is when you get that crush, when you're like, whoa, this is a lot harder than what I thought, because you're educating yourself, then you know that you're onto something good, because the step after that is informed optimism. But the only way to get to informed optimism is to get to informed pessimism.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got to have that like wake up moment. You got to have that, whoa, like, oh, this is, of course, because if it was that easy, everybody would be in Barney's.
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
No one's in Barney's now, but yeah. And, this was in the heyday of Bergdorf's and Bendel's, and I was discovered from Bendel's Open Sea, which was their famous casting call for designers 100 years ago. And what they would do is they would have the designers come in and do a trunk show, but you would have to stay there yourself from the moment the doors opened to the moment they closed, and you could not leave the floor. And, the floor staff had no incentive to try and help you sell your products because they make commission. So here I am standing there and trying to pull people away who are looking at other product from where their commission was coming. It was so uncomfortable. And the funny thing is, because it was a 2-day trunk show, the second day I left and I walked out, I fainted on the street.
Wow.
It was so intense.
The pressure.
And also, side note, I was dating some dumb guy and he's like, I don't think this is going to work out. And I totally fainted after that. I hadn't eaten anything. And he thought it was because of him, and it wasn't.
You're like, no, I just did a 2-day trunk show.
I'm like, I have nothing. I was like, I just need a slice of pizza before we even talk. And he's like, well, listen. And I said, no, hold that. I just need to have a slice of freaking pizza.
Wow.
So yeah, I never got my pizza. And I woke up and I was like, what the hell is going on? Yeah. And, it's this harsh realization that you are peddling things one customer at a time. And so many people tend to want to skip over that and think like, okay, I've done my one post. Where is everybody?
No, it is. I would love to ask you, like, what do you think the years that it takes from conception of a brand to really feeling like your head is above water? What would you say how many years would you say on average?
I'd say you need at least 2 years at a minimum, at least 2. I think, I always say inception, what I teach at my class is inception to shelf to repeat business to customer acquisition, and all the stuff that comes after that with collaborations and the narrative of sustainability, which right now needs to be part, but it cannot be your full story because it will be debunked and you can't be profitable that way. So it needs to be woven in. I always show this clip at I think it's my first class or my second class. It's a Marie Forleo clip. It's old, I admire what she does. I don't really follow her too much, but I know she's got some solid nuggets out there where she does this clip about poopery, which is a spray that, you use for the bathroom after you've done your business.
You spray it on the toilet.
Yes,
toilet water.
Bingo. Yeah, but it was an innovator. And, when you're launching a brand or even yourself, you have to be the fastest, the first, or the best. And unless you're checking one of those boxes, it's very hard to stand out. So what lane are you going to be in?
The fastest,
the first, or the best?
The first or the best. I love that.
You know who taught me that, which is
that's great.
Even funnier, Trinny Woodall.
From Trinny, London?
Correct. As I had mentioned, I worked in London and I had a lot of good friends there and I was connected with her. I went to London for a trade show right when I'd started my brand. And he's like, I can hook you up with a meeting with Trinny. And I said, oh, damn, sure. And she was doing How Do I Look? She was still doing that there. And I went to her house. She was still married at the time. She took me up to her closet. It had a key, the whole thing. And she sat me down and she's like, where do you fall within this? Like, what's your, and she's the one that said that to me. And I've repeated it ever since. I doubt she even remembers, and then, how are you going to develop your line? Are you doing it inspired by a trend? Are you doing something that's inspired by the runway? Are you taking it from something historical? Like, where do you fall in terms of your narrative? And it was so eye-opening to say, okay, where would I be? Because to be a pioneer is too expensive. It just is.
Yeah.
So you have to fall into one specific window in order to understand your narrative, because to educate a customer and to have them change their mind, you're taking and developing this precious 20%, and that 20% covers 80% of your business. Yeah. So how are you going to build up that 20%? And if you have to educate this customer and literally convert them to want to use your product, do you have the time value of money that you can afford to do that? Yeah. So I would say, 2 years to maneuver and manipulate your way into their life. Wow. But you have to do I'm a huge fan of ethnography. And I show, again, this vintage video of this woman from Miami. It's so grainy at this point where they're interviewing her, making dinner and writing down, like, here's the shows she watches, here's her commute, here's the food she likes to cook. And those are the things that you have to do to get into the mindset of your customer. And
your avatar.
Exactly. And we talk so much about, and I always use Urban Outfitters as my case study. Does Urban Outfitters, just because it's of the generation, it's at least easy to teach and say, okay, if you're at an Urban Outfitters, do you think they sell the same product uptown and downtown? Do you think they sell the same product from where you are to, Virginia or in Texas or in Miami? And the answer is no. And then we have this deep dive conversation. Why? Why do they not do that? Could your product sell in all of those stores? And if not, then you need to have a clear picture of who your customer is.
That's right.
So I say 2 years at a minimum.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a long story short answer.
No. I love the in-depth but I love what you said about the first, the quickest, or
the fastest, the first, or the best.
I remember when I got transferred to Next in New York, I was dealing with managers that had been dealing with celebrities, right? Because this was my first time with celebrities, like true celebrities. And, everybody was in like their late 40s, early 50s. And here comes like this 31-year-old in charge of New York City, which was
dangerous.
A big market. Yep. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, well, I'm obviously not the first. I mean, I'm the first with bloggers, but not with celebrities. I'm not the best. I don't have that many years behind me in this sector. So I decided to be the fastest. Mm-hmm. And I remember that a lot of the pain points that when I would meet these celebrities, like, oh, my manager doesn't get back to me until like 2 or 3 days later. Or, oh, I ask a question and I thought to myself, well, what if I answer emails within 24 business hours?
Yeah.
And what ended up happening is after 2 years, people in Paris would be emailing me because I would answer quicker than
someone in Paris.
In the same time zone.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, I take that with Idalia, with my company, Idalia Inc. It's like, okay, well, now I could say, yes, my company's the first to do this. I would like to think we're the best just because of the years and the experience, and we're also the fastest. So, to your point, like if you need one out of three to start with, but if you can maneuver your way into not crossing out all those three, like you're good. You're good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also, how niche can you afford to be? That's also a problem. If you get too niche, where do you fall? Is there enough for people to follow you, to work with you, to want to do a partnership, to do a collab with you? Yeah. How much are you voicing personally? I always say, professionally, keep your opinions to yourself, no matter what's going on, whatever the climate is, because it will come back to haunt you one way or another. Yeah. People want you for you, not for what your opinions are on topics that are divisive.
Yeah. I'm dealing with a situation right now with an influencer going through that. And I said, do you want the climate right now to be part of your business model? That's all you got to ask yourself. Because if the answer is yes, and you want to transition, go for it. Like that's your prerogative. But once you do start offering your opinion, you are opening Pandora's box, which is not necessarily bad. It's just you need to understand the consequences, both good and bad, that are going to come from it. And how is it going to affect your business? Do you want this to be part of your business model?
Yep.
That's all it is.
No, I totally, totally agree with you. I think the irony is that so many of these people are offering things that have nothing to do with what their personal opinions are. They want their personal opinions based on, how they look, how they dress, how they shop. Which line are you going to cross? So it's something I don't know, especially as someone who teaches, I make sure and make it very clear that my personal opinions are never, ever part of the dialogue, because it's not my business. My business is to teach, it's to educate, it's to make sure that you understand this process, how and what you want to do with it. That's on you. I can't control that. Yeah. I can only make sure
amen to that. I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you as an educator. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Idalia, I don't want to take any more of your time. This has been absolute treat, delight. How can people find you, follow you, get more amazing stuff?
So you can find me on Instagram, Idalia Salsamendi, Idalia, and then Salsamendi. My agency is Idalia Inc., so IDALIAINC.com. You can go on my website, and I do offer, free exploratory calls. I offer free worksheets. And again, if you are either a designer or a content creator, you fall somewhere in between, or neither. You just want to understand the content creation business a little bit more. I do offer, again, a free exploratory call and free worksheets. And then Substack, which is how you and I
was just going to say, if you didn't say it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's called Realization by Idalia Salsamendi. You could just put my search name there as well. And the really cool thing about what I'm doing with my Substack is, for my paid subscribers, you're going to get a lot more, you're going to get free live sessions with me. You're going to get free worksheets. So there's a lot happening where I just want to make sure that people understand the business. And that's why I'm such a big believer of educating and giving things away. Give that information away. It will come back to you. It will help you as a human being. And when someone's ready to work with me one-on-one or with my team, I'm here as well. So Instagram,
Amazing.
TikTok, same thing, Idalia Salsamendi, my website, Idalia Inc., and Substack.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been an absolute pleasure.
All mine. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate and review and follow us on every single platform at Handbag Designer. Thanks so much. See you next time.